Okay, today we're going to be talking about integers. So first, I want you to think about what you have heard or already know about what an integer is. So hopefully you remember back to that an integer is going to be a positive or a negative whole number. Some examples of that would be 5, -3, -7, 4. Those would all be examples of integers. So we have that positive or negative number. We also see integers a lot in terms of the real world when we're talking about temperatures or money, things like that. So let's just take some time now and figure out how we would write 23 degrees below 0. Well, we know if it's below 0, it's got to be in that negative side, so we're going to write -23. How would we write 11 inches of rain more than last year? That more than last year is going to tell us that it's going to be up from last year, so it's going to be a positive, so we're going to write a positive 11. A loss of 8 yards, if we're thinking about football, if we're losing yards, we're going to be going back. That's going to be -8. Last one, how would I write a deposit of $15? And we should all be able to do this from our checkbook log, but we know if we're depositing money, we're gaining it into our account, so it's going to be plus 15. Okay. Another skill we're going to have to be able to do with integers is to order them on a number line. So here I have a list, and on your notes you should have a list of integers that we're going to need to put on this number line. In the middle there, we're going to go ahead and put 0. That's going to be our starting point. I'm going to go ahead and cross it off up here so we know that we've used it. So if we think about a normal number line, let's just focus on our positive numbers first. So I'm going to cover up this other side here. So we don't even need to look at that, and we're just going to look to the right, since that's where our positive numbers are. If we see here, we have a positive 1, so we're going to go ahead and place a positive 1 in there. Cross that one off. I also have a positive 2. Well, 2 comes after 1, so I'll try to space that out the same amount to get 2. I also have a 4, so 3 would probably be here, meaning 4 would be right about there. Now, if we think of temperature, and we're relating that to our number line, it's going to be going down, but it's going to kind of mirror and reflect our positives. So what's going to come first? I want you to think, am I going to put -5 first or -1? Which is going to be closer to 0? Hopefully you're thinking -1, and you would be correct. So we're going to go ahead and place -1 right next to 0. Figure -2, -3, -4, maybe -5 is going to be way out here. Where there we have ordered those numbers on a number line. Really make sure that when you have that 0 there, that the numbers closest to it are going to be going down kind of the opposite of the way we would normally think. So we just need to make sure we double check that we're ordering those correctly. Another new term for you is going to be absolute value. Now, absolute value just means that we're going to look at the distance a number is away from 0. Okay? So if we think about a number line, regardless of positive negatives, how far is it away from 0? So if we think about 6, and these 2 bars here, those just mean absolute value. If we think about that number 6, how many spots away from 0 is it? If you think back to our number line we just did, hopefully you came up with, oh, well, that's just 6 spots away from 0. And see, when I find the absolute value, I take those bars away, and I just write the number. What about the absolute value of -6? How many spots away from 0 is -6? Hopefully, again, you thought, well, it's still 6 spots away. And you're right. I drop those bars, and I know that the absolute value, the distance that -6 is away from 0, is just going to be the same 6. Let's do a couple more of those. How about -4? Hopefully you're thinking, oh, well, that's just going to be 4 spots away. Notice it's not -4, it's just 4. -8. Well, that's just going to be 8 spots away. We can also solve some problems, do some of our evaluating and solving with the numbers in absolute value. So if we think about this, we're going to break this down. We're first going to try, if we were going to add this into like our order of operations, we would want to do absolute value, one of the first things, so we can make sure that we're getting our numbers before we're adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing. So absolute value of -4, we already looked at that, said that was 4. Absolute value of 3, well, that's still 3 spots away. And I'm subtracting them. 4 minus 3 is going to be 1. We're going to take this up one more notch, and we're going to evaluate some expressions where they tell us what that variable stands for, still keeping in mind absolute value. So for this, x is going to stand for -2. So 6 plus the absolute value of -2. So I'm going to go ahead and rewrite that. So x plus the absolute value of -2. All right, so we first need to think of, okay, what is the absolute value of -2? How many spots away from 0 is that? Oh, 2 spots. Now I can complete that. 6 plus 2 is, remember our mental math, 8. One more like that. This time we're saying y is -7. So the absolute value of y plus 8. So I'm going to go ahead and rewrite that. I'd like you to make sure you rewrite it as well so we don't lose track of numbers. Now I have the absolute value of -7, which is going to be 7, plus 8 is going to be 15. I'm hoping these are making sense for you. These next ones, I want you to practice on your own. So I want you right now, you're going to pause the video, and I want you to go through and I want you to work through the remaining problems. Once you have completed it in your math notebook, then I want you to go ahead and play the rest of the video, and I will have worked through them so you can kind of check to make sure that what you are doing is correct. So go ahead and hit pause and work through the rest of these problems in your notebook, then play it back again, and you will be able to check your work. All right, so we had the absolute value of -12. Again, we are thinking how many spots away from 0 is that? Oh, 12 spots. Next one, the absolute value of -14 plus the absolute value of 3. Okay, absolute value of -14, that's going to be 14. Absolute value of 3 is still going to be 3. 14 plus 3 is going to give you 17. Circle my answer up there. Okay, now you have to evaluate these 3, given that x is 7 and y is -6. So 15 minus the absolute value of y. Well, y is -6, so I'm going to go ahead and rewrite this. 15 minus the absolute value of -6. So it should look something like that. Don't let all those minus signs confuse you. Absolute value of -6 is just going to be 6. So my new problem is going to be 15 minus 6, which is going to give me 9. Next one, absolute value of y plus x. So let's go ahead and plug these numbers in so we don't get confused. So that's going to be the absolute value of -6 plus 7. Absolute value of -6 is going to give me 6. 6 plus 7 is going to give me 13. Down here, we have a 3 right next to the absolute value of y. Remember, if it's right next to a variable, parentheses, a number, that means multiply. So we're going to be taking 3 times the absolute value of y. We know the absolute value of y is, we know that y is negative 6. So 3 times the absolute value of negative 6, well, absolute value of negative 6 is 6. 3 times 6, that's a basic fact we should know, is 18. The last one that you had to do was order the following temperatures from least to greatest. So the least one up there, the coldest temperature would be negative 80. So that should be your first one. And notice you didn't have to put it on a number line, just ordering them from least to greatest. And make sure on assessments and things that you pay attention if it says least to greatest or greatest to least. So we have negative 80. Next coldest temperature looks like it's going to be negative 48 degrees. Almost forgot my negative sign there. Next one's going to be negative 45 degrees. Next one's going to be negative 39. Negative 34. Geez, negative 27. Not sure what city this is, but it's pretty cold. Negative 23. Negative 2. Then we have 5, and the highest temperature is going to be 12. Double check that you had those in order and you have completed your first flipped classroom video. You can go ahead on and complete your practice that's listed on the blog. I've listed it again here for you. And if you get that finished, you'll go to the extension work before the next video. Thanks so much.